This is FE Peer Review. The date is September the 21st, 2021. Do maps show Droppity? It depends. Now that I've posed the question and given you the answer right there in the title, you don't really need to watch this video, but hopefully you will want to anyway and will continue. This week, our favorite unemployed actor and obscenity-spewing preacher of ignorance, whose name I won't repeat, treated us with a particularly absurd bit of nonsense. While on his live stream in conversation with a clueless guest by the name of Dagodian, he ranted and then howled something about whether maps do or don't show Droppity. Frankly, I don't know whether he decided they do or don't, and I'm not going to subject us all to the sound of his voice to find out. I, for one, just ate dinner, and I don't want to lose it. But whether he decided maps do or don't show Droppity, he's wrong. Because the right answer is, it depends. Arctic Reflections, whose video we see here, did excellent responses to said unemployed actor, so I'll just link to his video in the description if you want more. If you want to read the comment I left on Arctic Reflections video, pause here, but I'll be moving on. My video is about what maps do and don't show. Let's start with a broad definition of my own devising. Maps are tools which relate information to specific locations in space. Typically, they are graphic representations. Maps are all about what information the map makers want to convey to the map users. I thought I'd use this as an excuse to share some interesting maps and muse about the communication of information graphically. I also thought I would get a little dig in by covering the issue of Droppity on maps and how it is, in fact, shown on some maps. Here's a little snippet from a tourist map of the Loire Valley in the center of France, one of my favorite places in the world, and on it we see no Droppity lines, because basically Droppity is not something which tourists touring around the Loire Valley are particularly concerned about. They are concerned about other things, though, such as roads, how to get where they want to go or back to their hotel. They would also like to know where things are, like we have castles. Here's a castle. That little symbol is a castle. There's another castle there. Here's a church. There's a museum. Campground, place to go canoeing. Tourist information, place to park your caravan. So here's a map that tells you all of the sorts of things you as a tourist touring the Loire Valley might want to see, and the roadways, how to get there. It also shows train lines. That's helpful if you happen to be arriving or departing by train. So there's an example. First example. This little book here, not so little, I could rightly say that it altered the course of my life, in that I was a young student of architecture, and I happened upon this book in the library one day, and reading it completely shaped my understanding of human interaction with the world across time, how the world has shaped humanity and how we have used the world to shape it, how we have shaped the world with the world we've found. I mean, it had a really profound effect on me, and it's interesting that this book actually starts with maps. Here's one of the maps. It shows natural resources across England, specifically the resources used for building. Here's a close-up of a piece of it here, so you can see it better. We have all the different types of stone. We have coal. We have clay for brick, we have timber, and this map, well, if you wanted to drive from Winchester to Salisbury, this map would be another failure. You'd never get there. But that's not why you use this map, and what this map is telling you is something else entirely. It's telling you about how, throughout all of history, the people in England survived by building, by finding ways, devising ways to shelter themselves with what was on hand. That's all in a map. I think that's a beautiful bit of map making. Oh, and by the way, no, it doesn't show Droppity. Now, here is a map. This is from the group Randonnée. It's a Randonnée map. It's one of the maps made by the Institut National de l'Information Géographique et Forestière, IGN. The map is intended for people driving, bicycling, hiking through the French countryside. So this map is intended for people who might be navigating. They might be using GPS to navigate. They might be using compasses to navigate. And you will notice a variety of lines on this map, such as these darker blue lines, or more worryingly, this black line here. At the top of it, it says minus 4 degrees, 25 minutes. Here's a close-up. There's another one of those black lines. At this side, it says 48 degrees, 5 minutes. And another close-up along the top edge. We see minus 4 degrees, 25 minutes here on the left, on the right. Over here on the left, minus 4 degrees, 30 minutes. Now, unemployed actor whose name I'm not saying, if you're watching this, and I suspect you will, this is when you probably, if you're paying attention, are starting to get nervous. Now here's another map. This is our Ordnance Survey Map of the UK. They make the most beautiful maps. This is a little snippet of Cornwall, and boy, I love their maps. They just feel good to touch, and the color, the quality of the printing, it's a real pleasure to own a few of these. Anyhow, they've got those same worrying lines running along the top and sides of the page, and I'm going to do a little close-up here so you can see it more clearly. Here's the top right corner of this map. Longitude 5 degrees, 22 minutes west, and then we see 23 minutes, 24 minutes, and the numbers keep going up. And going down the side, we see latitude 5 degrees, 14 north. Oh boy. I've put a little engineer scale there. I want you to note that starting at the corner to the first mark, we're at 5 degrees, 22 minutes. If we go down to the lower right corner of that same map, we find that the first mark is 5 degrees, 21 minutes. 21 minutes, not 22 minutes. We don't see the 22 until we get over to here. Now, if you look at this map closely, and others like it, you notice that these lines of latitude, they're not straight lines. They are concentric sections of concentric circles. And these lines of longitude, they're not parallel. They get wider apart the farther south you go. Here's a Michelin map of all of France. You can see it more clearly here. We've got longitude lines getting wider and wider apart as they go down the sheet. And we've got very pronounced curved latitude lines. Now this is a real problem because we know these latitude lines are due east-west lines, and we can go on the ground and measure that. We can stand on that line here, for example, on the day of the equinox. We can stand on that line here, for example, on the day of the equinox, and we can see the sun rise due east and set due west. And we can go over to the same line all the way over to this side of the country and do the same thing on the same day and see that it's also setting east and west. So that line is aligned east and west, and yet that line is curved. What is Droppity? It is a measure of Earth curvature with reference to a single point. What are latitude and longitude? They are spherical grid references defined by Earth curvature and polar locations. Here's a map of France again. This one has no latitude and longitude lines on it. For the benefit of those interested, I am going to draw Droppity lines. Look at that. We've got some Droppity lines. If you happen to be in Limoges and you want to know Droppity, this is the map for you. Unfortunately, if you happen to be 5 kilometers out of Limoges, this map isn't going to do you much good. It's not going to help you much either if you're in Bourges or Orléans or Rennes or Le Mans or Angers. In short, this map is pretty much useless everywhere in France except for one point in Limoges. It's great for that one point, but it's useless everywhere else. And one of the things that's characteristic of a map is typically a map such as this of a landscape is something that people are going to use to move around with. They're going to be in different parts of it, and they want relevant information wherever they happen to be. So as a way of conveying Earth curvature, Droppity lines are pretty useless on a map like this. On the other hand, latitude and longitude lines, which also define Earth curvature, or I should say are defined by Earth curvature, can be put on a map like this, and they are good everywhere in the country, wherever you are. This map is useful wherever you are if you want Earth curvature information for where you are. So, we're zeroing in on the answer here. What was the question? Let's see. Do maps show Droppity? It depends. If you want them to. So I was thinking, who might want a map that actually shows Droppity for a single location? And then I thought back to one of Arctic Reflection's other recent videos. He's done a few, he's touched on this subject on a few of his recent videos. What we see here is I think it's a Swedish Navy ship. I might be wrong about Swedish, I don't remember. He was also talking about some Polish ships that were in the area. But the point being that up here at the top of this mast-like structure, we have radar, and they put radar up as high as they can go because radar is limited by a horizon. It's a little bit farther. This kind of radar goes a little bit farther than human vision, but it is limited by a horizon. Anyway, I got to thinking of radar. I thought, wow, radar operators might want to have a Droppity map. I wonder about that. So I checked in with our trusty Wikipedia, and I looked up the Over the Horizon radar page, and you might want to check that out for other reasons. Over the Horizon radar is an interesting thing. It's a way to get radar to go past the horizon, and they do it, excuse me here, in this little drawing we see the picture, by bouncing signals off the ionosphere using a shortwave signal. A shortwave signal will bounce off the ionosphere and reflect back down to the ground well beyond what would normally be a radar horizon for other types of radar technology. So this is a way to carry a signal to a much further point by bouncing it off of our atmosphere to bypass the limitations of other types of radar. So as we scroll down the page, we find this delightful little map here, and I've got an enlarged version of that. What we see here is a Droppity map. So yes, the answer is, in this case, it depends, and in this case, yes. We have two over-the-horizon radar installations on this map for the United States, one on the west coast and one on the east coast. And what we see, this arc on the left side, that is a line of equal Droppity. And if we look on the right side, we see another line of equal Droppity. So we have a Droppity map, ladies and gentlemen. You saw it here first.